Hello, my name is Marcel Bogers. I'm an associate professor at the University of Southern Denmark, and I'm here today to present to you in this video lecture something about open innovation. But first of all, I want to say greetings and welcome to everybody, all the participants at the Innovation Forum 2013 in Mumbai, India, organized by the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. I was in fact very honored when I was asked to give a lecture about open innovation, and I gratefully accepted that invitation. But unfortunately, it turns out that for very practical reasons, I'm actually not able to participate in the forum physically. Not able to travel to India at this point in time. Because of that, we decided that maybe it would be nice to present you this video lecture so I can still share some of my insights about open innovation, which I think is a very important and useful theme for innovation research and practice in particular. And therefore I prepared this video lecture for you. What I hope is that we can still find a way to interact somehow. Of course, I'm not physically there, but hopefully you can try to reach me through email. You can find more information about me on my website, of course. And in particular, I would invite you to connect with me on Twitter. My hashtag, my Twitter handle is @Bogers, my last name. And we can also use the IF 2013 hashtag to interact, hopefully a little bit during the forum, but then also later on. It would be great to get your questions, your ideas, your insights into this issue of open innovation. So again, welcome to this lecture on open innovation, and I will try to give you an overview of what we know in terms of research and practice in the area of open innovation. Let me start by giving you this quote by Bill Joy, who is one of the founders of Sun Microsystems. A little bit over 10 years ago, he reportedly said that no matter who you are as a company, most of the smartest people actually work for somebody else. Now, this may sound pretty obvious to many people at this point in time, which is good because it means that you're maybe open for this idea. But when you think about it, it's actually really challenging a way that firms have traditionally gone about doing business, doing innovation, really trying to get all the smartest people into their organization, try to really get most of the resources and knowledge into their firm to be able to outcompete other firms in doing business and innovation. If we think of some examples, some recent ideas about, for example, the wisdom of crowds, issues like crowdsourcing. We of course have Wikipedia as an important phenomenon. Eric von Hippel has been writing a lot about the fact that innovation becomes more democratized, that users and communities become more empowered to do innovation. But just think of this example of Wikipedia, for example. So there are actually more than, or I think there's several dozens of millions of registered users and towards 100,000 active contributors. So we may debate whether this is innovation or not, of course, but the point here is that there are so many people out there somewhere in the world that are really willing to contribute to this common good, writing, I think, over 4 million articles in English Wikipedia, and I think well over 200 million articles in almost 300 languages in total. But the question, of course, is also how can firms actually tap into this distributed source of knowledge? So let me give you an example of Pringles Print, which is a product by Procter & Gamble. So I think it was at the beginning of this century where they had this nice idea that to print images or text on this snack. But they had problems really finding a solution on how to do that. They tried to work with inkjet printing, but didn't really work out well, all kinds of safety issues and so on. So instead of maybe abandoning this idea or trying to keep investing in developing a solution internally, they actually tapped into their external networks to try to find the solution to this problem. And funny enough, it turned out that there was a bakery in Bologna, Italy, where there was a university professor working in this bakery who was also developing equipment for this bakery. And basically, he already had a solution for this problem. He was already able to print edible text and images on cakes and stuff like that. So with very little effort, at low cost and much more quickly than normally, Procter & Gamble was able to acquire this solution and develop a very successful product. If we look at another example of Xerox Spark, when they were still part of the Xerox Corporation, this was a truly innovative company in the sense that they developed a lot of important technologies. Just look at the list of issues that they developed. So this goes from laser printing to personal computer all the way to the PDF file format, for example. So these are obviously very important inventions that actually changed the way that we live. But did Xerox Spark really profit a lot from these inventions? Well, not really actually. It was mostly other firms that were able to profit financially from these great inventions. And in fact, Xerox Spark was one of the examples slightly over 10 years ago now, to show that firms may actually want to try to find external partners somehow, other firms that they can work with or they can sort of provide this technology with in order to still financially profit from these great inventions in a way that they would not be able to do in-house. So again, this was one of the examples also for Henry Chesbrough when he coined this term open innovation back in 2003, basically saying that open innovation is a new paradigm for doing industrial innovation. And that firms in this new paradigm can and should use external as well as internal ideas. So like Procter & Gamble did, try to rely on external ideas for this Pringles product. But also try to use internal and external paths to market. Basically what Xerox Spark should have done, find external paths to market, try to work with other companies that would be able to commercialize that technology and still them profiting from that in one way or the other. In 2006, Chesbrough provided an updated definition which really focused on the use of purposive inflows and outflows of knowledge to accelerate innovation or to find those external paths to market. So really focusing on the fact that knowledge should not stay inside a single firm, but should actually move between firms, from individuals to firms, out to other firms. That is basically the way that we see open innovation. So that kind of model basically looks like this. If we visualize a company having firm boundaries, going from research and development, maybe all the way up to the market. Traditionally, we have seen this maybe as being a closed firm boundary. What open innovation is basically saying is that instead of relying on this sort of internal technology base and finding this internal development process to reach the current market, what firms should actually consider doing is opening up this firm boundary to more external sources of knowledge and technology, which again can be done in different ways. So firms may consider sort of outside-in open innovation, trying to get external knowledge into their firm to accelerate their internal innovation process. They may also, like what Xerox Spark should have done, and they kind of learned this in the hard way, say, actually find external partners somehow to reach new markets, for example, through spin-off firms, or to even work together with other firms, reach other markets that they would by themselves not reach for example, through licensing of intellectual property. And besides, we increasingly realize that a more coupled mode of open innovation, basically combining inflows and outflows, such as in co-creation with customers, or maybe R&D alliances between different firms, is also a very powerful way to actually accelerate inventive and commercialization activities. So a good example, I think, is here also the Dutch firm Phillips, who also on their website write that they are very engaged in two kinds of open innovation. So first, this inside-out innovation, where they make their skills and resources available to the outside world. So examples they give here are, for example, they do research for external partners. They provide technical facilities, which they see as part of that inside-out process, and also work with intellectual property licensing. And in fact, Philips is very active and successful in getting revenues by licensing out from their patent portfolio. Then they also write that they do this outside in open innovation, where they draw on capacities of individuals, organizations, and small startups from around the globe. So really trying to get access to those external knowledge sources, which is really often at the frontier of new insights and new technologies. So when we think of the different possible external sources of innovation, I think it's useful to consider this in the way that you may have a focal firm, so a firm which may tries to innovate in one way or the other, but this firm doesn't operate by itself. It's embedded in a larger value network, where it may be able to tap into suppliers, competitors, customers, or users to be more innovative. May also work with complementers, may work with companies that offer complementary products or services. Even with universities can be a very powerful source of innovation as well. Just to go back to the Procter & Gamble example, like with the Pringles product. So what they actually have been saying for quite a while, is that instead of doing research and development, they're going towards a program they call Connect and Develop. So really connecting to external sources of knowledge. And what they write, for example, on their website, is that they are very proud that more than half of the new product initiatives at Procter & Gamble involve significant collaboration with outsiders. Also that they partner with small companies, multinationals, individual inventors, also competitors, to bring new innovations to the market. And they also write that this Connect and Develop program is really at the heart of how Procter & Gamble innovates. So it's really at the core in their DNA, so to say, of how they do innovation. So basically the idea here is that there may be a whole big range of distributed sources of knowledge somehow, individuals, firms, and so on. The point then, of course, is that to tap into these external sources of innovation, for example, by getting this external knowledge into the firm and finding a way to capture the value of those external sources of innovation. So one of the things I've been doing, also with my colleague Joel West, is I've been reviewing this emerging literature in this domain of open innovation. And we realized that there are actually different parts in this research which really reflect what is happening in the practice of open innovation. And these three phases are obtaining, integrating, and commercializing external innovations. So if we start by this first phase of obtaining external innovations, so what is it that we are talking about in this case? What we find that other research and practice is really doing? So there are different types of also mechanisms and important issues that we find. So this really has to do with how do firms search, identify external sources of knowledge or innovation. How do they enable and filter this external knowledge? How do they acquire it? So you may think about, okay, just in general, how can they source from external sources? So be their competitors, the customers, university suppliers, and so on. How can you source from these different sources? There are also different mechanisms, like using innovation contests to actually generate innovative ideas. They may also work with intermediaries who are sitting in between them and these possible sources of innovation. Could also work with providing toolkits that allow external people, so which could be anybody out there, to actually be involved in the innovation process. So just to give an example here, I think a nice example here is the firm Threadless. So this is a t-shirt company, which is sort of a hard market to get into and be really profitable. But what they did is they developed a more, say, open business model. So instead of relying on internal designers to develop new designs for the t-shirts, they actually rely on external people. Basically, anybody in the world could submit a design for a t-shirt that could look like anything that they want. Threadless then offers the toolkit to actually develop the design, but also helps people to be involved in marketing this own design, because these people have an interest that their design is actually selected, not only because they will receive a monetary reward for it, but also people like designers are very interested to see their design, of course, being printed by Threadless. And in this way, Threadless is really has a very, very profitable business model where they can rely on these external sources to do the design, to be involved in the marketing, whereas they do the production, and they offer, of course, the platform and the toolkit to do that. Another very nice example, I think, is Lego. So an early example is also maybe Lego Mindstorms. This is basically a product which involves hardware, software, where you can essentially build your own robot. What happened after this was introduced, I think already within a few weeks, actually users of this product, often adults actually, started to tinker a lot with this product and significantly improving it. I think that Lego initially actually didn't know how to react. They may have not been so happy about it, because you usually don't want your users or customers to destroy your product, basically. But it turns out that because of that interest, because of that innovative activity, that the sales of this product actually really exceeded also Lego's own expectations. So it was actually leading also to the success of this product. Another more recent example is Lego Cuso, which is basically a platform offered by Lego for people, again, anywhere in the world, to submit designs for a next Lego product. And people of course, come up with all kinds of ideas. Lego gives them the toolkit to develop and submit their idea. But then they also need to get the support for this idea. So they work with votes and people show interest. And if it reaches a certain threshold, Lego will actually produce this product, knowing that there is a demand for it because people showed an interest in the product. Another sort of general example that I mentioned is this idea of innovation intermediaries. So organizations that offer as a service somehow to companies, they basically offer a big community or crowd of possible problem solvers. So this has been really growing quite rapidly over the last couple of years, with different kinds of intermediaries popping up and developing. And one of the best known ones is Innocentive. And Innocentive currently actually has over 300,000 very skilled problem solvers they call them. People from all kinds of areas, but very skilled in their particular domain, with a wide variety of backgrounds, of course. They also work with strategic partners, and they can actually reach more than 13 million people through those strategic partners. So far, there have been over 1,650 challenges posted, for which there were more than 40,000 solutions offered. So it means that on average, for every challenge, every problem that is posted by a company, there are almost 25 people or teams working in parallel on solving that problem. And the success rate is also actually The awards are given are actually more than 1,500. Of course, this involves different types of awards depending on the complexity of the problem. But the success rate, as they claim, is actually 85% for a particular type of challenges. But anyway, it's very high rate of success and much higher than companies would probably have in their internal innovation process, while they actually have a much wider range of problem solvers working on their problem. But of course, if we think about, okay, how to obtain external knowledge is only part of the story. What is also very important is how to integrate this external knowledge or innovation into the firm. And this, in fact, I think is one of the main challenges for many firms trying to work with open innovation. So when we talk about integrating external knowledge or innovation, this really has to do with issues like, does the firm have the absorptive capacity? Does it have sort of the knowledge to be able to identify and understand those external sources of innovative knowledge? Is it able to acquire that knowledge in that sense? Also, the company's culture is really important. So one way of talking about this is that traditionally, and this is also not new, but many companies, especially the most innovative ones, have what is called a not invented here syndrome. So people working in R&D, actually they want to come up with the next generation of products. They want to really solve the big problems of the company. And they have this problem of not being willing to accept external ideas coming from outsiders. Then what companies like Procter & Gamble are saying, well, we should get rid of this culture. We should actually get a proudly found elsewhere culture, being proud to be able to actually work with external partners, with external sources of knowledge, and then being able to integrate it into the organization. Of course, you also need to think about how can you actually create incentives to cooperate in that way. Do firms have the right competencies to actually integrate this knowledge, because it relies on a different set of competencies mostly than purely inventing new ideas and products. I think an interesting example that some of my students worked with a couple of years ago is it's one of those crowdsourcing platforms, Million Brains. And they work with Arla, which is the largest producer of dairy products in Scandinavia. They wanted to have this kind of crowdsourcing platform. So they opened up this kind of challenges, opened up for external ideas. But it actually turned out that one of their challenges was to get these external ideas integrated into the company, to have the right internal organization and the processes to actually work with those external ideas, realizing that they should get this sort of internal openness, if we call it like that, but the internal cooperation, the boundaries between the internal silos, so to say, should be worked with first in order to actually effectively open up to the outside. A related example here then is something I've been working with one of our former PhD students who developed a new way of working with prototyping. And basically what he did is try to involve as many or certain stakeholders from different parts of the firm, from different layers of the hierarchy. So including managers, but also from R&D, from marketing, also involving users in different ways. Try to get these people together, to work together on solving certain problems that arise during a prototyping process, and thereby really creating a very, say, efficient process to actually integrate different internal and external sources of knowledge. Then a final step in this process here, after obtaining and integrating external knowledge and innovation, is really how to commercialize this. And interestingly, there's not so much attention to this in the literature, and even in practice, I think it's quite challenging to really turn the sort of open innovation practices into a really commercial success. An example I looked at a couple of years ago is a collaboration between AkzoNobel and Samsung, which are both innovative firms in one way or the other. They work together on actually developing the next generation of compact disc back in those days. Interestingly, they were very successful from a technology point of view, but this was in the end a commercial failure because they were not able to actually find the right way of commercializing this. They had not really found the right business model to actually outcompete the existing technology in this industry. So when we think about commercializing these external innovations, what is important to consider here is, does that process, what does it look like? Is it the same process as an internal product development process would look like? Or do you rely on different types of competencies? How can you make sure that you can appropriate the benefits coming from these external innovations? Very important issue here is, what kind of business model does the firm have? Business model essentially has to do with how and who creates value, and then what is the way in which a firm, in this case, can actually capture the value, or how is the value capture distributed among different stakeholders involved in the innovation process. So if I go towards summarizing this, so what would be determinants for successful practices in open innovation? One thing I try to highlight is that there is a process of obtaining, integrating, and commercializing external sources of innovation. This really has to do with what kind of value network is a firm embedded for which kind of products. What I didn't highlight so much here, what is also, I think, underemphasized in research and practice, is some of the interactions in this process. So how do you go back and forth in this process? How do you actually interact with external partners? How do you co-create? As I gave some examples that this is still a very important source of innovation, but then what does it look like in terms of this process, and how does it work for different firms working with open innovation? Very important when thinking about how to actually work with open innovation, how to integrate external sources of knowledge, the internal structure and the internal processes and capabilities of the firm become very important. This is really the thing that I think is most problematic for many firms who want to open up their firm boundaries for external sources of innovation, but they need to consider the fact that they need their internal structure and processes to be in place. So, for example, Arla realized through their crowdsourcing experiment, so to say. Here, an important issue also is, and it's not really clear actually, is open innovation actually a complement or a substitute to internal innovation processes? I mentioned, for example, absorptive capacity. So should firms actually also invest in internal generation of innovative knowledge to be able to actually work with external sources of knowledge? Or can they maybe replace? Could you have a firm that purely bases on external partners to go through an innovation process? Also important to consider, again in research and especially practice, is that there are of course certain costs involved in open innovation. So what are really the boundary conditions that make open innovation successful is something that we have not really totally captured. We know there are a few things that work better than other things, but what are really the main conditions that make open innovation successful? Also taking into account some of the possible downside of open innovation, some of the conditions in terms of what type of firm, what type of industry, what type of technology or technology cycle does this work better than in other cases. Also important to realize is that there's a difference between innovation and financial performance. So even open innovation may increase the innovation capacity of a company. It does not necessarily mean that they also end up financially profiting from it. So this is really also this commercialization step in line with the business model that needs to be better considered. So when I conclude and look a little bit ahead here, I just want to highlight that I've recently been working with Henry Chesbrough also on providing an updated definition of open innovation, which is saying that open innovation is a distributed innovation process based on purposefully managed knowledge flows across the boundary of the firm, as I tried to explain, using then also pecuniary and non-pecuniary mechanisms. So there are different ways to actually get this knowledge flows going across the boundary of the firms, which may involve sometimes, money, and in other cases there may be other mechanisms that are useful to actually incentivize external people or organizations to be involved in the innovation process. But all of this has to be in line with the organization business model to actually capture the value that is created through this process. And I'm also just showing this definition because I hope it will give you an invitation to think about your own research and practices in this domain or related to open innovation, so that you can start to consider in your case how, when and where is open innovation really relevant. Also thinking about the theme of the innovation forum here, what does open innovation in practice look like? Does it really reflect the way that we see it also in research? What are different types of examples? What are different types of practices? What works, what doesn't work? Those are really also the kind of things that I would like to hear from you, maybe somehow, how you perceive this. So I really welcome you also to connect with me, for example, on Twitter, using maybe the Innovation Forum hashtag of IF 2013, or maybe try to connect to me through my website, send me an email, or find other ways to interact with me, to share me your insights, your questions, your concerns related to open innovation. And then I would really look forward to interacting more with you. So with that, I would like to thank you for your attention. It's been an honor to present in this way for you. And also thanks to the organizers for inviting me. And I wish you really a very wonderful and productive conference. Thank you.